with that being said, talking about school, this lead story, our first story, folks, are you sitting down for this? Because it is crazy. We have Minneapolis School District agrees to access white teachers first in the event of layoffs. What? Yes, they're going to get rid of the white teachers first and keep all the minority students, regardless of how good of a teacher you are. So if you're an amazing white teacher, like you are one of the best in the district, they're going to get rid of you first because you're white and keep somebody that might not be as good at their job because they're a minority. You can't make this stuff up. This is what the Democrats want. This is what the progressive left wants. I mean, it's as if we're reverting back to segregation. It's as if we're reverting back to racism, and they don't see it. They're completely blind to it. So Minneapolis Public Schools and the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers have come to an agreement that will, among other things, protect members of underrepresented populations from possible layoffs at the expense of white teachers with more experience. Yes, you heard that correctly. So they're going to hurt the students by getting rid of the white teachers that have more experience and probably are better teachers than some of the underrepresented populations. I'm putting those in quotes because that's what they said, at the expense of the students, just so, they keep all of this diversity and racial inclusion and all this other stuff. And actually, this is just racist. This is like affirmative action and all these other policies they want to put in place to kind of even things out. The two sides came to an agreement back in March to end a 2-week strike. According to the Tennessee Star, the agreement contains specific language to protect non-white teachers in the event that the district needs to reduce or relocate teachers within the district. In a section outlining which designated programs and staff, is what it's called, may receive an exemption from layoff, and that's in quotes as well. The agreement states that certain teachers may be exempt from district-wide layoffs outside of seniority in order to remedy the continuing effects of past discrimination. So we're still on this whole boat here of past discrimination. So what they're going to do is discriminate against the white people to help the past discrimination that happened to the non-white people. Wow. Now I get it. Now that totally makes sense. I don't think so. That's crazy. Such teachers include those working at one of the 15 racially isolated schools with the greatest concentrations of poverty, members of population underrepresented among licensed teachers in the district, alumni of historically black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and or Hispanic Association of Colleges and University Programs. Yes, it's literally baffling. It's crazy how this is not just deemed racist and just all the left going out there and shouting racism in the streets and burning cities. No. We can't do that. It's only about police brutality. That only happens when a white cop, regardless of what happens, shoots a black person, or when you got racist people going out there. I would like to point out, I'm not for racism. I would like to point out, I'm not for discrimination. But, this is what you have. This is what's going on. It could be a national model, and schools in other states are looking to emulate what we did. A member of Minneapolis Federation of Teachers Executive Board, coming to a school near you, folks, getting rid of the white people first and keeping all the minorities after, regardless of seniority, regardless of how well you do your job. I'm laughing because it's so baffling. Even though it doesn't do everything that we wanted it to do, it's still a huge move forward for the retention of teachers of color. Oh, well, what we probably want to do is actually just get rid of all the white teachers in general and only keep the teachers of color. That way we can even out the diversity as well as all the past discrimination that happened to everybody. Folks, I mean, this is wild. This is so wild that this is allowed. In order to secure these race-based preferences, though other groups had to sacrifice some of their protections, the group most impacted by the move toward race-based protections is the group for which the union used to advocate most aggressively, those with the most seniority. Let's be clear, with a view to get to that place, somebody has to provide one thing up, said Condra Bennett, interim senior human sources officer for the district. What the hell is that? Interim senior human sources officer? Has anybody ever heard of that? I've heard of human resources, but not a human sources officer. The seniority-based system is the bedrock of the union labor. I love how they're like basically saying, well, somebody has to take a hit here. Somebody's going to get screwed over. Oh, it's going to be the white people. In the same way for the affirmative action, somebody's going to get screwed. Somebody's going to get messed over. Oh, it's just the Asian people. Oh, you scored better on the SATs to get into Harvard. Well, screw you because you're Asian. We're going to let the black person in. We're going to let the Hispanic person in, or whatever the race may be in before you are. So you're the one that gets screwed. All because of discrimination, all because of past discrimination. So you pay the price for past injustices today of which you never committed, you had no involvement in. Isn't that just lovely how all this works? White teachers with the least seniority will now be accessed before teachers from underrepresented populations with less experience. The Star Tribune calls the pivot toward race-based protections unique to MPS. Yeah, you would hope that would be unique because it's freaking racist. It's discriminative. I love how they're like, oh, well, we don't want to discriminate against past discrimination, but we're going to discriminate against today, against the whites specifically, because of the past discrimination that was committed, and also how the union was advocating for whites so strongly before, thus they have the seniority, so we're going to get rid of them. This is just head baffling, spinning, mind bending, folks. Seniority disrupting language. An indication that other unions across the country may soon follow suit, like California, New York, the biggest unions out there, especially teacher unions. Others, however, have challenged a new policy on constitutional grounds. When it comes to termination, an employer can't racially discriminate even against whites. The left doesn't think so, though. The left thinks that you can. Look at affirmative action. That's the greatest example we can point towards. They think you can do this. This comes from a constitutional lawyer. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in 1996 that a school district can't consider race even as a tiebreaker in deciding who to lay off, even though to promote diversity, because that unduly trammels the white teacher's rights. And putting that aside, the school district can't not consider race to promote diversity when black people weren't seriously underrepresented in the workforce as a whole. They don't care. They're going to do it anyways. You think they care about the Constitution? We're talking about the progressive left here and portions of the Democrat Party. They don't care. Look, if they cared, then this, at least some way, has to be a linear connection to affirmative action. In some way, shape, or form, has to be a connection to it, right? I mean, you could see it, even if it was a rough analogy, you could see the connection, but they don't care. They're going to screw over some sort of somebody. Just so happens to be race. It just so happens to be white people in pushing a certain agenda. And that's because there's some injustice, some discrimination, some racism that happened in the past. And they're trying to eradicate that and rectify it today by screwing over other people that had no involvement in that racism, had no involvement in the discrimination, but at the expense of themselves and others, as well as the students. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.